Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College. Let me just make sure everybody can get in from the waiting room. And while people are coming in, I would love for whoever is already here to put in chat where you're watching from. If you've got, actually, we invited families with seniors, juniors, maybe even some sophomores. So tell me what year in high school your student is, either has just started or is about to start. If you've got that high school senior or rising senior, tell me where you're at in the process. Have you, do you feel like you have a final college list? Or is your student starting on essays? How overwhelmed do you and your student feel? It's kind of natural at this time of the year. So please share how things are going on. While you do that, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and making sure everybody can still get in. So give me just a few seconds. Okay, I'm going to spotlight myself. And let me get the chat going. Great. Okay, so let me see. So this is technically a Zoom meeting. It's not a Zoom webinar, the way they run webinars. And I do that for a few reasons. One is I just like to see who's out there, even if you don't want to put your video on. But if you do want to put your video on, it's nice. It's just nice to see a face as opposed to just people's names. But even seeing your names, makes us feel a little bit better that we're talking to people, just not the blank abyss. And this is recorded. Hey, thank you for turning on your video. This is recorded. You'll get a link to the recording tomorrow. If you truly want to unmute yourself and ask a question, that is fine too. Or of course, put your questions in chat. We have different sessions that are AMAs where people are unmuting like left and right, and we're kind of having lots of interesting conversations. So those are some of the reasons why I do these as meetings. It just can be a little bit more interactive if we need it to be or we want it to be. So I see there's a lot of people here. First of all, also thank you for coming during the day. I know that, it's hard to fit these in. And because this is a day session, I might be kind of going through things fast because I'm trying to get through within the hour just to be respectful of everybody's time, because I'm sure you might be Zooming from work or just, interrupting your day to see this. So great. Thank you for sharing all this information about where you're at, and different people from all over the country. Always have to stop and see when I see somebody says they have twins going through the process, because it's hard enough. We all know with one child, but if you're twins, my heart goes out to you. But it sounds like you got the process started, and they're working on their Common App essays, so that's good that that's moving along. Okay. And somebody, Mary from Philadelphia, you say you have a college freshman, so you've gone through the process, and a sophomore in high school. You're here for your high school sophomore, and your college freshman received 10,000 in merit. So hopefully you have a little bit of better understanding of the process, and hope I'm sure you can even do more with your knowledge this time around. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Today is really talking about merit scholarships. For some people, maybe it's a little bit of a repeat, but I like to kind of talk about what merit scholarships are for people who might not know, and give you examples of the way the colleges share the information. And then I'm going to talk to you about some of what the numbers mean and how you can do research. And let me just say one last thing before I bring up my slides. My goal in presenting all this information, and actually in all the webinars we do, is to really share information so that parents get educated on the process, and that honestly you can do as much of the work as possible on your own. We have tools that if you want to get a little bit of help in the process, that's fine. And then we also help people in more detail on like specific parts of the process. So today we're going to talk about merit. We're going to show you the data. I'm going to show you our tool if you want to use it. But even if you don't use our tool, you can take the information today and go out and do your own research. So just want to kind of like frame that as to how or why we do these sessions. Okay, let me share my screen. Oops, nope, slideshow there. And now let me share. Okay, and if one or two people can just give me a thumbs up, or I just want to make sure that you can see the screen. Thank you. Great. Okay. I gave you the agenda, what we're going to do. So I also kind of frame these discussions in terms of how people are going to pay for college, right? Because really, let's be honest, the majority of the reason why we're looking for colleges that can offer a student merit scholarship, it's to reduce the cost of college. Because I mean, and that's a whole nother conversation, but the cost of college has gone crazy. And when you are looking at where you can get money to pay for college, there's really three main buckets. One is whatever money you've saved as a family over the years, most of it, maybe it's in 529s, maybe it's in other types of savings. And then the other source of what comes from families is that sometimes families can cash flow, to help pay for tuition. So their student goes off to college and they take a lot of the expenses that they might have had for that student that they paid for while they were home, and they put that towards college. But so basically, and the third, which I don't have on here, is if you're lucky enough that you might have other relatives or a grandparent who's willing to help support part of the college costs. Those are the different ways that the majority of families can contribute from their current income or their savings. The next bucket is free money, and that's what we're going to focus on a lot today. And then I also talk a tiny bit about borrowed money, because I think that it's important for families to understand what the landscape is about how much students can borrow and how much you're going to need to help them borrow if you need to cover the gap. So in terms of free money, families get free money from colleges because they show that they have a demonstrated financial need, and we're going to talk about that. So that's called need-based aid. And then there's merit scholarships, which is the bulk of what we're talking about today, and that's money that is given to families not based on any financial need, and it's usually going to be based on some sort of academic achievement or talent. Then there are private scholarships, and then government grants. So all this in this bucket is free money because it's money that's given to a student, and the student does not have to repay any of it. My 2 cents about private scholarships is that it's not bad. It's just, to me, an order of priority of where a family is going to spend their time. So the largest scholarship a student's going to receive is going to be from the college that they ultimately attend. So that's why it's so important, this college list building phase of the process, because you want to research the colleges. By the time your student is accepted and decides to enroll, right, you can't go back and start applying for other colleges. So finding the college that can give your student the most money in terms of merit scholarships is where a family and a student is going to get their biggest source of scholarship money. So in terms of effort, that's where I encourage students and families to spend the most time to make sure that they can maximize that opportunity. And then if you've got time after, a student can be searching for private scholarships. But the reality is that private scholarships is a numbers game. And what I mean by that is students have to send out a lot of applications. I mean, I think, honestly, I've seen a ratio of like 100 or I was going to say maybe like 20 applications to one acceptance, something like that. So a student and that one acceptance is usually, a $500 scholarship. So does any free money help? Absolutely. But going after private scholarships is just a bigger effort that a student has to put in. And so I'd rather see families focus on the merit scholarship first, really nail that. And then when there's extra time, students can go and look at private scholarships. So let me talk to you a little bit about borrowed money and student loans. And the reason why I'm telling you about it now, when you're not in that phase yet, is because parents don't understand and families don't understand that there's a cap as to how much a student can borrow. And I think a lot of families go through this process, particularly this stage of the process, and they assume, okay, if there's a gap and I need to borrow money, my student will just borrow the money. And yes, you can find loans to cover the gap, but a student is only going to be able to borrow a limited amount of money on their own. And any money after that, a parent's going to need to co-sign. And I think that's where the reality sometimes sits in it, or it gets, the parents don't realize that reality until a little bit late in the process. So just to give you some quick numbers, a student can only borrow on their own in a freshman year $5,500. It goes up sophomore years at $6,500, junior and senior year at $7,500. In total, that total comes out to be about like 28,000 to 31,000 is the total amount a student can borrow on their own. Personally, I think there's no issue, and students, if you need that additional money to pay for college, students should take out those loans. Those are loans from the federal government. At that dollar amount, it's very likely that a student can pay that money back and it not be a burden on their, daily or monthly expenses once they graduate. But any money above that, parents are going to have to co-sign. So again, I just put that out there now so that you understand kind of the reality of what parents or what students can borrow on their own and what parents need to get involved in. And we do whole sessions on Parent Plus loans and private loans, but I think just knowing that little bit of information now is important. Okay, so I think I kind of already mentioned it, but the reason why I focus so much on this stage of the process, or why coming up with a college list is so important, is it because it drives some really vital pieces of what your results are going to be. So the first, most important is the colleges on your list or your students list are going to ultimately determine your family's final costs of college, right? So whether or not your student gets merit aid or merit scholarships or other types of aid, the colleges that they apply to, or the colleges on their list, or the colleges they are going to apply to, are going to be the only colleges that they can get acceptances from, and then ultimately from those acceptances they're going to have to choose which they enroll in, right? So you can see the direct line of whatever colleges are on your students list. You can start to estimate what that final cost is, because either what the sticker price is now, and then I'm going to show you, you're going to be able to know, am I eligible for need-based aid, or am I only going to be eligible for merit scholarships? And does that college offer merit scholarships? What's my student's likelihood of getting a merit scholarship? And then therefore, let me estimate, if they got a merit scholarship, what's going to be my final net cost of college? So that's how you should start to be thinking. And whatever college is on your students list, I can't guarantee it's going to be a precise number, but you can get an estimate of what your final cost is going to be. And even if that estimate ends up to be within, $5,000 or $10,000, that's a better understanding of what your final cost is going to be than to go in blind. So that's why this stage of the process is so important. The other comment, and particularly if you've got a senior right now, you're starting to feel the pressure about how much work is involved in doing these applications, how many essays there might be. There's the Common App main essay, but a lot of schools have supplemental essays. And then if your student's going to apply to honors programs, or maybe even some of these merit scholarships, which I'm going to talk about, where have additional applications, that's sometimes another essay. I'm not saying this is bad, but I'm just saying to recognize that the number and the colleges on your students' lists also are going to determine how much work it's going to take for your student to get through the application process. Again, no student really goes through this like unscathed. Maybe no parent really goes through this unscathed. It's going to be work. So I'm flat out not denying that, but it's just how much work it's going to be, and how much capacity your student has to do that work. So just be cognizant of that. And my last saying is, and we've been saying this for a long time, for many years, you can't get money from a college your student didn't apply to, right? And I say that because so many, a lot of parents in the kind of like in the later months, like in March or April, when results start to come back, they said, "Oh, I didn't know that, such and such a school, gave out so much money. My student should have applied there." Yes, you can say they should have applied there, but at that point, it's unfortunately kind of too late. And so that's why it's so important to be researching now, before the deadlines happen, which schools can offer your student money, because if they don't apply, they're not going to get the money. So, okay. What is merit aid? Probably a lot of you know it. I'll just go through this quickly, but really, in its kind of basic form, colleges are using merit scholarship money to attract the type of student they might want, to may or may not have initially thought about that college. So they're using it to get the student who has higher test scores, they might have higher GPAs, and then they basically are saying, come to our school, we know you're a great student, and we're going to basically compensate you for the academic achievement you've shown, and in return, they are getting somebody who will probably raise their stats over time, which is important to the colleges. So they're trying to, for each individual college, they're trying to say, we want to get the better student. Every student is great, but relative to the students that might normally come there, we want to try and get a student with maybe higher stats, and we're going to lure you or tempt you with a scholarship. As I said earlier, these merit scholarships are not based on financial need, and we're going to talk about how you determine if you have financial need. So, they're not kind of looking and seeing, oh, you're a certain income level, and therefore we will or we won't give you merit. It's purely based on non-financial criteria. Yes, somebody asked, yes, you'll be receiving this, a link to the recording. It always goes out the next day. If by chance you missed the email, we actually also put these up on our YouTube channel, but so you can definitely get the recording. And what's also good about merit scholarships, as opposed to private scholarships, is that when your student is awarded a merit scholarship, particularly as part of like being an incoming freshman, that money is renewable every year. So a $20,000 scholarship per year is really $80,000, against the total cost of tuition. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. There are definitely private scholarships at that dollar amount, but you won't see, those are much, much, much harder to find and much harder for your student to win. So again, that's why we focus so much on merit scholarships. And private scholarships, majority of them are not renewable. So whatever work your student has done to get the scholarship the first year, they're going to have to repeat that and find another source of private scholarships the second year. Again, private scholarships are not bad. It's just you have to kind of put them in their place relative to other sources of funding. I'll answer that question in a second. Somebody's asking about merit scholarships and FAFSA. Most merit scholarships have a GPA minimum that a student needs to meet to renew the scholarship. We go into detail about that a little bit later in the year, but I mentioned that now because when your student gets to the point where they've been given or awarded some merit scholarships, it's so important to look at what that minimum GPA requirement is. It completely varies. Some schools make it pretty easy and they say 3.0 and you'll get the merit scholarship in the subsequent years. Other schools, and this is kind of like where they get you, sometimes do make the GPA requirement higher, and a 3.5 could be tricky for your student to feel confident that they can get it renewed. And the reason why it's so important to make sure that your student gets the merit scholarship renewed is because most families are making the decision to send their student to that college because the college has become more affordable based on receiving the merit scholarship. So all of a sudden, if a student isn't going to get a merit scholarship award one year, that affordable college has now become much more unaffordable. So just keep that in mind. So before I go on, well, hey, somebody says, how do we scrutinize merit aid versus what has become the coupon Kohl's cash because school is just charging much more than it should be? So that's a fair statement, and I completely agree that some schools basically kind of their merit scholarship looks like, a Kohl's discount. Everybody gets a discount. Like come to the school, the store, and everything is discounted, 10% today or 20% today. And some schools are definitely using that, and there's been criticism kind of in the industry about why colleges do that. They claim it's basically consumer psychology, that the consumer meaning you, me, parents, haven't changed our mind, that we still feel that we'd rather kind of see a high sticker price and then get this discount, and then we feel better about sending our kid there, as opposed to just saying, okay, we're reducing the cost and here's the lower tuition cost. They've actually, not that they've done tests, but some colleges do what they call tuition reset, where they actually kind of say, we're not playing this game anymore, and we are just going to lower the costs of tuition in following years. And they find that, crazy enough, they don't do as well as opposed to when they kind of have these higher prices and offer the merit. It's a whole nother discussion I'd love to have with people, but that's kind of like a little bit about what's going on. But I will show you, there's a piece of, there's a data point to show you how many students are offered merit scholarships, and that gives you the clue as to whether or not the school is kind of treating it as like the Kohl's discount. Going back to the previous question about FAFSA. So question here, if merit has nothing to do with need, why is the FAFSA required to be eligible? So good question. And let me just clarify a little bit. Some colleges still ask families to fill out FAFSA to be eligible to be reviewed for merit scholarships. Not all. So it's not a straight across the board, every college that gives out merit where you need to fill out the FAFSA. So that's something else you need to kind of ask the college or see if it's listed anywhere on the website. And, again, sometimes it's just easiest and safest to just ask the admissions rep and say, my student, wants to make sure they're eligible for the merit scholarships. Do we need to fill out FAFSA? Some schools will say yes. Some schools will say no. For the schools that say yes, let me explain why. Well, a few reasons. One is they truly want to make sure that a family that they're considering for merit scholarship doesn't also have need-based aid, because if they have need-based aid, they want to make sure that that family is getting aid through those channels first, and then they can supplement, the college can supplement with merit. And it's actually, my second answer is really kind of similar to the first, is that there's different buckets that colleges use to pull money from. And again, if your family potentially has need, they would rather take money from a different source within the college and kind of help your student fill the gap with institutional aid that might be earmarked for financial need, as opposed to institutional aid that's earmarked for merit. So they're helping to they want to get your student to the same point in terms of giving them money, but if you have need, they want to make sure that money is coming from a different bucket. And some colleges, in order to make sure that that's the case, they ask you to fill out the FAFSA so that they can be assured that you do or do not have need. So that's the best answer I've gotten, honestly, from several financial aid people. Would you fill out FAFSA? Would filling out FAFSA reduce merit aid if they know you can afford it? Honestly, I highly doubt it. I actually would say the opposite. I think that colleges want to know if you can, let me backtrack for a second. If I'm in the situation where my family, it's clear that they're not going to need aid, yes, I will probably avoid filling out the FAFSA for as long as possible, until potentially I might want my student to take out loans. So because that's when they need to fill out FAFSA. But some schools, if you fill out FAFSA and they're asking for it, and they're truly using it for merit scholarships, they actually will use it to your benefit, because they would rather give money to a full pay family than a family that has need. And that's sad thing to say, but for a lot of colleges that are what they call need aware. That's just the truth. So need aware does mean that they are looking at your finances on some level as part of the admissions process. And so for that situation where I just explained, the quick example I'll give is let's say they have a budget of $40,000, right, to give as merit scholarships. They could either choose to give $40,000 to one family that might have financial need, or they could choose to give 10,000 scholarships to 4 different students who don't have financial need. And if you did the math, then the college is probably further ahead in terms of what they call net tuition revenue if they gave that $40,000 to 4 families as opposed to giving it to one family. So the whole point of what I'm saying is I wouldn't be concerned about playing the game of is the college looking at my finances or not. If they want to look at your finances, they're going to find a way to look at it, and most likely they're going to use it to their advantage. And their advantage is probably, and then your advantage is probably, if you don't have need, it's going to help you as more so than if you're a family with need, which is sad to say, but I think it's the truth. Okay. So there are 3 types of merit scholarships. This is not a formal categorization. This is just kind of the way I've categorized things so that to quickly explain it to families. There's what I call automatic, competitive, talent. Automatic is kind of what the name means, and I'm going to show you where if your student meets the criteria, then they're going to automatically get the merit scholarship award that the college is offering. The tricky part here is that some colleges who have automatic awards share all the criteria very openly on their websites. Other colleges do not. They are giving out automatic merit scholarships, but they're not telling you what the criteria is as transparently as other colleges. But I'll show you some details. Competitive is kind of what it says. Usually this can be usually if it's a competitive scholarship for merit, then the student's going to have to do something else in addition to just sending in their application. They're probably going to have to fill out another application that is just to be reviewed for merit, and usually that application has an essay. And again, that's kind of where these essays start to pile up. You got the Common App essay, you got supplemental essays, and then you might have honors essays for honors colleges or school or programs, which usually also come with getting into the honors program is getting additional merit scholarships. And then there could be just other scholarships that the college is offering that are competitive, and they invite your student to apply, and that's another essay. So this is where the work starts to add up. And then talent is based on does your student have are they applying for an art program, a music program, a theater program? Usually those schools, if they're going to give merit, have auditions. They will have deadlines for sending in portfolios. So again, there's usually a few extra steps in order for your student to be considered for those scholarships. It's not just going to be automatic. Even they might have an amazing talent, but they probably have to take a few more steps to get through or get into the process to be considered for scholarship money. The thing I want to highlight before I go on to show you more specifics is deadlines are so important in this process. So, there's early decision deadlines, early action deadlines. There's deadlines for when financial aid forms need to be submitted. And the financial aid form deadlines for each college is going to be different than what for the state and for the federal government. So for example, there's usually, if your student's applying early decision, even early action, some schools, they will have a financial aid deadline that's in November or December. Okay. And we can talk about the FAFSA delay in a minute, but versus the government, the deadline for filling out the FAFSA is actually like a year, like it just passed. Like, so it was, I think it's the end of July, or could even be the end of August. But that's for the students for getting aid for 2023. So, I mean, it's like, so my point is, don't go by the federal government deadlines for financial aid. Go by the school's financial aid deadlines, and potentially the state has deadlines that are very early and different than the federal government. Okay. So, so somebody's asking, I love this. It's very sweet. And it's, so she says, I have a super green question. Oops, I just missed it. So are these essays for competitive available over the summer? We are trying to figure out how to balance school and sports, so I am looking for advice. A perfectly valid question, and I'm glad you're trying to balance, your students' time. So in terms of the essays for competitive, I the answer you hear a lot in the college admission space is it depends, which is a horrible answer, but that's just that's unfortunately the reality. So some schools will again make it obvious about that they've got these competitive applications for merit, and they actually make it part of the initial application process. So kind of like if your student is applying, whatever, even, and they sometimes also make it that merit scholarships students who are applying have to apply early. So it can be, you might be able to find some of these essays now. The other kind of way that this happens is your student sends in an application, again, whether it's part of the early admissions or regular, and it's after they send in the application, the college reaches out and says, we would like you to go further, and we would like you to apply to these additional scholarships. So sometimes that happens in the January timeframe, and I say that only because by January, students, parents were a little burnt out, and a student might be invited to apply kind of further in the process, and they are like, oh, do I want to write another essay? Hopefully you can encourage them to do that, because every little bit helps. But so my best answer to you is to ask the colleges that your student is applying to. But you want to, and this is a great question for your student to ask the admissions rep, and they should reach out and say, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I've looked on the website. Are there any additional scholarships that I can be applying to make sure that I can get merit scholarships? Do you know of those applications and essays now, or is it something that you're going to tell me after I send in my application? So again, I wish there was like some central source that we could go to, that the colleges all share their information, and they don't, and each college does things differently. So my best advice is to really make sure that you're asking these types of questions to the admissions rep. Make sure you're looking on the application, and just as even like a backup, if your school counseling is good, then ask them if they know that if there are any additional college specific, applicate or scholarships that your students should be aware of for particular colleges. So that's why, unfortunately, this process is research intensive. Okay, what I'm showing on the screen here is an example of what I call one of the automatic merit scholarship schools. This happens to be Miami University of Ohio. I've just been tracking it, for the past 4 years. And what I show on the bottom right is what this, so colleges that have automatic merit scholarship, most of them usually show their information on their websites in some form of a grid, a table. I mean, to me, these are the A+ schools because they're making the information as transparent as possible. So here's an evolution of the chart for Miami University in the bottom right. It was 2020. Happened to be right before COVID hit, and obviously majority of schools were test required then, and you can see that Miami University showed both what type of an SAT or ACT score you needed plus a GPA. And then as you can see this evolve to the left, which is 2021, then 2024, I just skipped some years for saving space, and now 2025, you can see they obviously took off the test score because they went test optional, but they also changed their GPA levels, right? So what was at one point a 3.5, their top level became a 3.95, and then even last year and this year became a 4.3. So I point this out for a few reasons. One is schools change from year to year, right? They are tweaking their criteria. And if you go back to what I said at the beginning, and maybe I'll embellish it a little bit, colleges are using merit scholarships to attract a certain type of student, right? And so every year they're evaluating what the results were. So did we use our money wisely? Did we ultimately get the students that we wanted with the type of stats that will help us? And it could be from year to year, they say, hey, we did well, let's up this. Let's see if we can get, a student with an even higher GPA. And so that's why you might see that they, shift their GPA ranges from year to year, and they sometimes shift the dollar amounts that they're willing to give from year to year. The other thing I like to point out, and the reason why I use Miami University as an example, is they make a point to show that the GPA they are looking at is a weighted GPA. This is, to tell you the truth, a little bit unusual. Most colleges are using the unweighted GPA because it's the easiest that they can, compare students apples to apples. In any case, whether their college is using weighted or unweighted, it's important for you to make sure you know what GPA they are using if they're doing automatic scholarship awards. And the quick example or story that I'll share is this was a family a few years ago. They, were looking at a school that had a table. They were certain that based on their students' GPA, that the student was going to get the highest level. It turned out they were using the weighted GPA. The college ended up, using the unweighted GPA. She got the second level. Going back to, they were a family who was trying to estimate all their costs, and so their costs came out very different because they thought that she was going to get a higher award. So again, ask the colleges, ask. If it's not clear what GPA they're using, have your student write an email and ask. If you're going to a presentation where there's a college rep, ask them. If you're going to a college fair, ask them. So hopefully, some colleges make this clear, others just don't say anything. So then you really have to ask, are you guys looking at the weighted GPA or the unweighted GPA? Yeah, so somebody's saying, so University of Miami University is giving a lot less money now. I guess per student, you can say maybe they're giving less money. We don't know in total if they're giving less money. Maybe they realize that they can use their budget and get more students in by kind of lowering each individual scholarship a little bit. But that's kind of the implication. You're right, by looking at these charts, that they're giving a little bit less each year, or since they did in 2020. Okay, here's an example of a competitive merit scholarship. The one on the left is from University of Southern California. And the reason why I show this one is because they have a different deadline if your student wants to be considered for merit versus their regular decision deadline. So, and actually, so USC always had a different deadline for merit scholarships. I think about 2 years ago, they actually started offering early action. And so basically what they are saying is, if you're a student who wants to be considered for merit scholarships from, our school, you need to apply as part of the early action round. You need to apply by November 1st. If you miss the November 1st deadline, you can still apply to us. You can apply December 1st, which is our regular decision deadline, but you won't be considered for merit scholarships. So again, this is a great example to show the importance of deadlines. So that's the example on the left. The example on the right is from Boston University, and I just show it to share. Again, they have a different deadline of December 1st, which is different than their regular decision deadline if you want to apply for merit. They kind of give a little hint as to the type of student that they're giving out money to. If you can see, it says, though it's underlined in yellow. Though test scores are not required because they're test optional, students who submit scores to be considered for merit scholarships generally have a score above 1,500 and ACT above 33. I am not showing this to say, oh, only the kids with the absolute top scores can get merit. I'm just showing this to say that you need to kind of look at all the details and making sure your student is applying by the right deadline, and if there's some indication of the type of student that they are receive merit scholarships, to make sure that your student is kind of like, in the running for in terms of their grades. There are a lot of schools that give out merit, and your student doesn't have to have a 1,500, doesn't have to have a 33, and I'm going to show you some of them. So so I don't want you to take that away from this example. It's really more that make sure that they kind of have the the stats that are most likely that they can receive merit at a particular school that they're applying to. Okay, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly so I can get through more. So I always find it's really important. This is a section I call Know Your Numbers, and I'm going to tell you the three most important, what I think the three most important numbers are. One is cost of attendance, SAI, which is student aid index, and then finally your family need. So cost of attendance, another quick way of saying it, it's the sticker price. It's the price that the government asks or requires colleges to put on their website. It includes tuition, room and board, and any other additional fees. The college makes an estimate for what your travel costs might be, just general expenses. I think sometimes some colleges put in a healthcare, health insurance cost. So this should be kind of like the rack rate, the most that you should pay if you're paying for everything at that college. And this is also the number cost of attendance that colleges use to determine if you've got financial need, and they use it to determine how much money they can give you. So it's an important number for you as a family. It's an important number for the college and for the government. And this is on every college's website. It may not be clear, but you can always Google the college name and then basically cost of attendance, and it should bring you to the page that has all of that information. Yes, so cost of attendance includes room and board. So what actually can't remember off the top of my head, if they might pick the lowest room and board, or they might pick the average cost of room and board. At some schools, room and board varies depending on the type of room your student might get, whether double, triple, single. So it might not actually pick the highest room and board, but it's probably going to pick the room and board to include that the majority of students are ending up paying. Okay, so the exam, and SAI is student aid index. That's the number that gets calculated when you fill out the FAFSA. But you don't have to wait to fill out the FAFSA to get an estimate of your SAI. Everybody today, you can go Google Department of Education FAFSA estimator or FAFSA calculator. The government actually has a page or a quick tool that will estimate what your FAFSA number is. Sorry, what your SAI number is. I encourage everybody to do that, even if you feel like you won't get aid, and it just might confirm you won't get aid. And I can kind of tell you what SAI numbers, are likely to not get any aid, but you should just know what that number is. And then what your family's need is just the basic calculation of what's the cost, what's the cost of college, what's this COA minus what my SAI is. And so what's left over, the gap, is what your need is to actually pay for college. So let me go through the examples, and it become clear. If you see what your SAI number is, you probably get a sense of whether or not you have the potential of getting aid from a school or not. So the example on the left is a family that has an SAI of 30,000, right? So that means that any college that student applies to where the cost of attendance is higher than SAI, that family is going to have a financial need, because cost of attendance minus SAI is going to be their financial need. So in the first example, the student is considering a college that has a cost of attendance of 50,000, so their need is 20,000. And you can see how your need is going to vary depending on the college, because it's based off really the cost of attendance. So at the next college, the cost of attendance is 80,000. The family has the same SAI, but now their need is 50,000. So, I mean, it's not a difficult concept, but some families don't understand. They think that their SAI is going to change by college. Your SAI is your SAI. It's going to stay the same for your family for that year. Might change year to year. And then your need is going to vary because the need is going to be based on the gap between your SAI and the costs of the college, and every college has a different cost. So that's the example on the left. This family at most schools is going to have financial need because the reality is most schools are going to cost more than 30,000. And then the next thing to understand is, okay, this family has a financial need, not which colleges are going to help them with their financial need. Not every college is, so that's the next level to research. But now let me shift to the example on the right. The example on the right is this is a family with a much higher SAI. I purposely picked an SAI of 90,000 because most colleges, there are a handful that are above a 90,000 cost of attendance, but for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to say most colleges are going to have a cost of attendance that's less than 90,000. So this family, just based on their SAI, already knows that they're probably not going to get financial need at any school. So the only way for them to reduce their cost is to find a school that's going to offer their student merit scholarships. Okay. The first family is going to look for a school that can help them with need, and their student can still get merit scholarships. The second family, not going to get need-based aid from any college. They are, if they want to reduce their cost of college, they're going to need to find a college that offers merit scholarships and where their student is most likely to receive a merit scholarship. Okay, hopefully that's clear. Let me look at some questions. Are there ways to lower your SAI? Yes, there are ways, but you have to make those changes before so SAI is based on what they call prior, which is your tax returns 2 years before the fall that your student is applying to or enrolling in college. So if you're a senior, your student is going to be enrolling in fall of 2025, right? That means your SAI is going to be based on your tax returns from 2023. Okay, those are over, right? those tax returns are done. So if you're a senior, it's not likely that you can make a lot of significant changes. There are some minor changes, but a lot of significant changes to your 2023 taxes. But if you're somebody here who has a junior and a sophomore, you could be still making some changes. That's my general comment. But the more specific is that the major driver of SAI is your adjusted gross income, your AG. I'm sorry, I'm getting my acronyms mixed up. The major driver of SAI is AGI, adjusted gross income, or your household income. I mean, so unless you're willing to make a tremendous trade-off in really dropping your household income, which most families are not, you're not going to make significant changes in your SAI. You can make what I call minor changes around the edges by making sure that assets are in the proper naming and so that they don't get maybe picked up. But over 50% of the SAI is driven by your household income. So it's honestly, and I know that you might see ads, and I know that there might be people who give webinars on how to reduce your SAI. And for a certain family, like honestly, if you're retired, so that family who might have a lot of assets but a really low income, and they're looking for ways to reduce their SAI, they might have a chance. But if you have, a household income that's probably, 150,000 or above, you're not going to make significant inroads into changing your SAI. So that's a whole nother conversation, another webinar, but that's my 2 cents. Okay. So my last point about SAI is if you want to be serious about making those changes, you got to do it when your student is a sophomore and junior. You're just not going to have the chance if your sophomore is a senior right now. Okay. The other example related to numbers is that here's the example of the family that had a 90,000 SAI, right? The other number to keep in mind, there are actually 4 important numbers. The last number is your budget. it doesn't matter what the school, what the college is, or sorry, what the government says your SAI is. I mean, you have to know it and you have to work with it, but you just might have a budget that you can't afford to spend more for college. And let me give you, and there's lots of reasons, and it could be, obviously financial constraints, which, probably is the majority of reasons for a lot of families. Other families might have a philosophical, feeling that they just don't feel like they need to spend more than, $60,000 or $50,000. Another family might have other, issues because they have, elderly parents that they are supporting. So it doesn't matter what your reasons are. You just need to know what your budget is. And that's an important exercise for your family to discuss and say, how much do we have to pay for college? This is where the understanding of loans come in. How much are we willing to borrow to add to that amount? So what's our budget? Like, what are we, like, we're going into this process, like you were going to buy a car, you were going to buy a house. What are we willing to spend? Some people, again, have that like philosophical feeling of like, I'm not going to spend more than this dollar amount. What am I willing to spend? What am I able to spend? So you should understand and know that number. So in this example, this is the family that has an SAI of 90,000, but for whatever reason, I'll give you a real life example. This family said, I'm not spending more than $45,000 for to sending my child to college, even though the government thinks I can spend 90,000. And let me give you a real life example of a family we work with. The student knew she wanted to go on to medical school. So it wasn't just the cost of undergraduate, it was the cost of medical school. The family had another child who was disabled, so they had to make sure that child was covered financially for life, and they had an elderly parent that they were supporting. So this family's SAI was over 100,000 because they actually had the means, but they weren't willing to spend all that money on undergraduate, and they purposely said, I think that their dollar amount was 50,000. I don't want to spend more than 50,000 because I want to save money to help my daughter go to medical school. So they went into the process with that in mind. And because of that, their student applied to lots of schools. They applied to schools where they were probably going to be the best student, like applying there because they wanted to get a lot of merit scholarship money. They applied to schools that told them, that offered them to it was a girl that offered her to apply for additional full ride scholarships after she applied. And then honestly, she was an excellent student. She applied to some reach schools just because she wanted to know if she could get in there. It turned out she got into a full range of these schools. She got into elite schools. She got into a school that gave her a lot of merit. And she finally got a selective merit scholarship, which was a full ride scholarship from a college. But it took a good 10 months to go through the process to get that result. So, so just kind of want to give you like a story about how different families do it. So in this case, the family has an SAI of 90,000. They're telling their budget is 45,000. If obviously the first college they might look at, the cost of attendance is 40,000. The cost of attendance is less than their budget. Great, that's a college they can afford. The last column on the right is a college where the cost of attendance is 80,000. Because their SAI is 90,000, they are not going to get need-based aid. The only way they're going to, reduce that 80,000 is if this is a college that offers merit scholarships. In this case, the college does offer merit. They gave the students 25,000, and then this family factored in they were going to take out the federal loans, and then there's still a little bit of gap above that. But you can see how they were able to estimate what the cost was, and also they estimated that their student was likely to get merit. So hope that this was helpful. Now I'm going to switch and going to show you quickly some of the numbers and tools that you can use to get. I'm going to skip this, sorry, just to get a little further along. Okay, so we have a tool called Insights, and basically it compiles data from a lot of different sources. You can look at these raw sources if you want. You just have to be more savvy with manipulating data sets. And some of these sources are just like harder to combine. But the basic sources is something called the common data set. Every college, almost every college, I shouldn't say every, but a majority of colleges fill out this form called Common Data Set. If you haven't looked at one, I encourage you to pick any college your student might be interested in and just type in, Goucher Common Data Set. And then it will give you the link to the common data set that the college usually shares publicly on their website. And this is and again, it's usually like an Excel spreadsheet or could be a PDF, and it's oodles of data. And that's actually where we get a lot of this data from. So you can look at it individually for a college. What is really hard is that colleges, there are some sources, but there's not a source where you can kind of do what I call a reverse lookup. So in the first example I gave you, you have to know the name of the college and then, kind of say, Goucher Common Data Set. And then you can look at that college's data set. But there's not a place, except this is why we built Insights, where you can go and say, okay, I don't know which college has this data, but I'm interested in finding a college that offers, $20,000 in merit scholarships. So you put in that criteria, and then it searches all the common data sets and comes back with the data. So that's what we did with Insights. So the major source of data is the common data set. The other source is government data from a source called IPEDS. Again, it's public data, not always the easiest to deal with, but if you wanted to Google IPEDS and look at getting data sets from them, you can. And then the third source is crowdsourced data. And this is data we have collected probably now for like 5 years, where we ask families at the end of the season or when their student gets an offer to share with us anonymously what dollar amount their student was offered and what the student's profile is. So what their test scores were, what their GPA was, did they submit an application and also include their test score, and what the family's SAI is. So, and the state that they're from. All of those things kind of play a factor into usually the decision of whether or not a student is going to get aid. So this is data that only we have, but you can look at it. We have it on a lot of schools, not every school, because it depends, on what families share with us. But when you get to the stage in next year, when you get offers, the other value in sharing the data is when you share your offers, you can then see what other offers students got at the same college. And this is a way to say, did your student get a fair offer, or is your student there's more money on the table and you could be appealing? So that's a little bit further down in the process, but that's the other source of data that we use. Okay, I'm going to quickly switch and show you how to use Insights. Okay, can you guys see where it says Insights? Okay, so if you go to insights.road2college.com, this is what you would get to. I already have an account, so I'm going to sign in, but you can create a free account to see what it looks like. And the free account will let you do like 5 searches. It will let you see, some of the results of the searches. It will give you a good enough sense of what you can do. It just doesn't give you access to all the capabilities and not all the data. But I'm going to show you how to use Insights. If this is, one of the ways that you want to research colleges and find colleges. Honestly, we built this with a much more direct focus on costs and merit scholarships. We don't have anything in here like, what's the food like at the college? That was not the purpose of this tool. So if you're looking for like those softer things, probably, and then you can use this and something else, but like a source like Niche, has like more of those reviews, what's the sorority, what's the Greek system like, all that type of stuff. This is really, we're focused much more on helping families find colleges they can afford, and find colleges their student can get into, and find colleges that are going to offer them merit scholarship money. So I'm going to go to Power Search, because that's where you're going to do most of your searching, and show you how you can use this. Again, you can use this in lots of different ways. I encourage first-time users to have an open mind. We call it, cast a wide net in terms of what the colleges you're willing to consider. Because sometimes students and families put too many filters on, and so and they get like very narrow results too early on, and then they never kind of at least know, oh, there were other schools that maybe could have given us more money, but we didn't consider them because we were only wanted to go to schools in New York and California. So again, kind of be open-minded if you when you approach. Oops, sorry. Let me just mute somebody.
Yeah, it's over there. The second one. Or the third one.
Okay. So to be the most open-minded, I actually encourage families to first search by their students' test score. And I know you're going to say, well, my student's going to apply test optional. I get it. They still might apply test optional. But in terms of data, the colleges share the most robust set of data around test scores. Even though they say that average GPA is important, or the GPA is important, and it is important in terms of their review, they just don't share the data. They don't share as much detail about GPA when they share all of this information in their common data sets. So for data and searching purposes, it is better to use your students' test scores. And if your student truly never took a test, then you can take their GPA, and actually Prep Scholar has the best charts that I've seen. You can convert their GPA to like a possible test score. You're going to create a range anyhow. You could use their PSAT score and convert it to what that might have been to an SAT. So there are different ways to still use the test score, even if your student didn't take an official SAT. I would do these estimations. So I'm going to just show an example here of filter or searching by, let's say, a student that had 1,200 and a 1,300. And then if you want to find schools where they're likely to get in, then you can search by the average. But if you want to find schools where they're likely to be offered merit, you want to search by what we call the top range, or the 75th percentile. So these are scores that are at the top percentile of students that have enrolled in that school. So again, these are going to be like the better academic students who decide to attend these colleges. So I'm going to pick the top range. And now it's come back and said, for that range of 1,200 to 1,300 SAT score, there are 293 schools that have that that have a test score in the 75th percentile of students who enroll in that school. And then in this sort field, you can sort the results by all these different data points. So you can sort by location, you can sort by the costs, you can sort by what the average test score is, you can sort by, do they have an early decision? I tend to like, again, if we're looking for a college that can offer your student merit, I like to search by average merit aid, right? So now, and this is showing in descending order. So this is, of the 293 schools, the school that gives the highest merit dollar amount happens to be Susquehanna. Their average merit aid is $36,000. Kalamazoo is $36,000. Washington and Jefferson is $34,000. And so now what you can do is say, okay, I'm going to create a list of these colleges. So I either want to save it or I want to do a little bit more research. And then you can click and say, I want to save all 293. Okay. And then you would just click it. You can create a name to that list, or you can add it to an existing list you might have, or you can go individually through these colleges and say, I want to add Susquehanna, I want to add Coe College, I want to add Widener University, and then you can create multiple lists by doing that. Then once you've created lists, you go into My Lists, and then there's a different view that you have of your information. This is a list I made the other day. So I actually happened to use the 1,200 to 1,300 SAT. It was the 75th percentile. I narrowed it down to schools that were just private colleges, and these schools happen to have an early decision or an early action deadline. And so there were 63 of those schools. Now I can view those schools in this table format. And then you can add, so in this table format is more data than you can see in the thumbnails. And you can add the type of data that you want. This is, some people get overwhelmed by these tables, so you can just look at a little bit of data, or if you want to add all the data at once, that's fine too. I tend to like to add, at least I usually add all the data at once. So I'm just going to do that for this purpose. So you just click on, I just added admissions data. Now I'm going to add the merit scholarship data. And now I'm going to add the financial data, which has usually the costs. Okay, now you can see this is kind of operates a little bit like Excel, not exactly, but you can see, all the schools on the left. You can scroll through and see the different columns of data. You can scroll down because I think there's 63 colleges on this list. But what I can also do is I can sort any of these columns, again, in ascending or descending order. So let's look at, there's a column here for average merit award, if you guys can see that. And now I can sort that by which one gives the most, because we saw that over there, or we saw that in the other results. So Susquehanna gives a lot. And this is, I'm now going back to the very beginning when somebody asks about the Kohl's discount. So the two columns you need to look at is the first column, which I'm highlighting here, which is the average merit award. That's the dollar amount that on average students receive if they're going to get merit. And the column next to it says how many students at that college who did not have financial need are being offered merit, right? So this is going to kind of gives you the indication about the Kohl's factor. So Susquehanna, which is a good school. And so let me just to add one kind of caveat, even though maybe a school's operating with that Kohl's discount factor in mind, it doesn't mean it's not a good school. Okay, so I really, because and I've heard many people in education, talk about that that we need to kind of get away from the idea that the costs of a college, the brand name of a college is the only way that identifies whether the college provides a quality education. That's not the case. So just because Susquehanna is giving a lot of their students merit scholarships, it doesn't mean that they do not offer a quality education. There are better ways to be looking at the quality of the education than just by the cost, but the cost is important because you got to be able to afford to send your student there. So so in this case, Susquehanna is giving 98% of the students who do not receive, that do not qualify for need, on average, $36,000. So if your student has an SAT in that 1,200 to 1,300 range, or even if they have a GPA that would probably likely, put them at the top of the range for Susquehanna, and they apply to Susquehanna, then, and you don't have need, then your student is likely to get 36,000 in merit. And now you can estimate, you can see in this column here, this is the cost of attendance, that their cost is 70,000. If your student got 36,000, then their cost, your net cost would be about 34,000. So this is how you can start to estimate before your student even applies to college what your cost is going to potentially be. And in addition, you should absolutely still be doing the net price calculator. So now I might say, go to Susquehanna, use their net price calculator and see what they are telling you your cost is going to be. Those, these are all kind of pieces of a puzzle, and none of these, unfortunately, are exact. So what I'm showing you here is to give you an estimate. The net price calculator is an estimate. So, but it's still better than nothing, and you should still take these steps in kind of figuring out your estimate instead of going in blind. So, just so here's, an example of how you can use this table. I might also look at, I like to look at early decision rates or different. So here's actually, oops, sorry. We break out, there's overall admission rate, right? And then if a school has early decision, it means that they're accepting students early. And sometimes they put aside a certain percentage of the class and they accept them early. So, and then by default, it means that the regular decision session or stage, it becomes more competitive. So here's an example. I mean, these aren't actually necessarily very competitive schools, but so Washington and Jefferson, their overall admit rate is 88%. But they're actually, interestingly enough, are being very selective, applying admitting people early decision, and they only fill their class with 5% of the students early decision. So actually, I'm looking at this, I wouldn't actually apply early decision to Washington and Jefferson, because I might want to just wait and apply either early action to other schools and just apply to them regular school. But let's look at, here's an example, High Point. They actually, again, not a particularly selective school, but you can see that from early decision, they are filling their class. They're taking 47% of their class early. So I'm just pointing this out, is that the more selective the school is, and if the school has early decision, they sometimes take a big chunk of their class early decision, and very few seats are left regular decision. But if with this data, you can at least know it ahead of time. The last thing I want to show you is here is to just show you what the crowdsourced data looks like. Let me sort this. Okay, so if you click on each individual college, there's a button here that says crowdsource offers. And for Susquehanna, we go back to 2020, it looks like, but this is this year's students who shared offers with us. And you can see that Susquehanna gives, actually, I think we said that their average merit was like 34,000, but looking at these results, they're actually giving closer to 40,000. So, you can look at the profile of the student. Let me go up to like a families that are above an SAI of 60,000, because they're definitely not going to have need. And you can see they are, the students from Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia. They have, GPAs ranging from 3.2, who you can see that student, and even the 3 GPA got a little lower in merit versus the students that got that have a GPA of 4. And then these students have SATs of 1,500, 1,300. They applied early action, and then this is the dollar amount that they received. So this, I say this information is directional. We don't have enough offers on each college to make a statistical prediction, but you can get a sense of what type of offers the colleges are giving. You can get a sense of the students' stats. And it's, it's interesting information. It's definitely helpful, even if it's not statistically, strong. Okay, let me see what type of questions there are. That's officially the end. Just, I know if people want to leave, but I'll try and answer questions that people put into chat. Okay, so somebody asked, how many clients do you have able to get crowdsourced data for one specific year on one specific college? That is many offers. That is many offers that you received. So it a little varies by college, but honestly, the more popular colleges, I mean, Penn State, we have a lot of information on. We might get anywhere from 30 to 50 crowdsourced offers per year. So and last year we had, in total across all of the colleges, we had collected 20,000 crowdsourced offers. So I think it's a good representation. Again, I can't say every college has a crowdsourced offer, and there are definitely some colleges that have more of these offers than others, but the colleges where the majority of students or a lot of students are applying to, we tend to have a lot of good crowdsourced data for that. Oh, that's a good question. Somebody asking, is there any place in the tool that can show, oops, sorry, these are jumping around, can show out-of-state students that get in-state tuition rates? right now, I'll be honest, no, there isn't anything right now. We are in the next, well, we are getting in new data right now, and in the next few months, we're going to add data like what you're talking about, Joe. So today it is not there. We are hoping by the end of the year, some more interesting pieces of data like what you're asking for, we're going to add. Oh, okay, good question. Is merit offered based on junior year or senior year GPA? Well, so if you're applying early in the early decision or early admissions time frame, then technically your students, yeah, the merit is based on your students' GPA from freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Because actually, in most of the admissions process, that's the GPA that it's based on. The senior year GPA isn't really obviously calculated until the end of senior year. And sometimes, depending on what season your student is applying to, the first year semester grades might be sent in, but basically the GPA is based on freshman through junior year. Okay, sorry, I have a okay. Let's see, what are the questions? Oh, who would be a person to direct me regarding the best asset placement to lower your SAI? I mean, if you are a family that's a sophomore or a junior, feel free to send me a message if you want help with reducing your SAI, and we can help you because you're a sophomore or a junior, then send me a message at support@roadtocollege.com, and I can connect you with a college financial planner that we partner with, who I think does an excellent job at that. Okay. Okay, so the question about how you gauge quality of education, I love the topic. It's too much to discuss now, but I think it's a great webinar topic, and I'm going to schedule that probably sometime in September, and I'm going to have a former dean of admissions who we work with, who will talk about that. But because I think that people should kind of broaden their ideas of what a quality education is, and not just go by the rankings or the price. But and so sorry, I can't answer that here right now. It's just a little too much. Are you able to extract the data? So in Insights, a little bit you can. If you get a paid membership, you can download a college list. And I think honestly, I can't remember if it's up to 20 or 30 schools, and you can pick. I think you can download a list. It's 30 schools, and then you can pick 20 pieces of data to download it. So we let you download, but can't let you download everything, because then people could walk away with all the data. What's early action versus early decision? So early decision, if your student applies early decision and they get in, then they are committed to going to the college. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They are going to take away all of their applications from any other colleges, and that's the college that they're going to attend. Early action just means that your student has applied early, and the college is committed to giving them a decision early, but they are not required to attend that college. They can still wait for decisions from other schools, and they're not making this commitment that they will absolutely attend even if they've been accepted. Okay, yeah. So some people are asking for the link. So this is insights.roadtocollege.com, and I think you'll also be receiving a email with more information if you're interested. And let's see. Oh, so that's interesting. Somebody saying Naviance is also help for admissions. I honestly, I haven't seen it in years, because you can only get access to Naviance if your school offers it. I did see it a long time ago. My kid's school offered it. It was good then. I've heard like ups and downs in how it's working these days. So sorry to hear that it's not easy to navigate. So let's see, can non-custodial parents take out the plus loans? If you're a biological parent, whether you're custodial or not, you can take out the plus loan. So let's see. When the college looks at need, are they thinking your student will be able to tap into the full family funding in the first year? What I'm really asking is, do colleges consider all 4 years or just the upcoming year? That's a really good question. So when colleges look at financial need, they're only looking at it 1 year at a time. And that's because, well, I mean, for lots of reasons, but one is when you fill out your FAFSA, it's only based on 1 tax year. It's only going to be based on like this one prior tax information. Even though it also asks for your assets, which are not by year, but colleges are only offering money per year. They're not necessarily looking at, do you have the money to pay for it for all 4 years? Although they probably should. Love this question, twins. If you have more than one child in college at the same time, will the SAI change per child? Yes, but not significantly. So your SAI is per child, even if you have twins. There's different components of the SAI. There is the parent component, which includes your household income and your assets. And then there's the student component, which is the student might have income. So it's the student income and the student assets. So if you have twins and your students if your students have different income and different asset levels, that will affect the SAI. But because they're coming from the same parents, which the parent information usually dominates what the SAI is, that that information is going to be the same. So they might differ a little bit because it depends if they have the same amount of assets or income, but I'm going to be imagine that they're going to be close in number because your parental assets are the same. Okay, so I will look over the rest of these questions, if that's okay, after. Let's just, because it's a lot and I don't want to hold anybody up. But hopefully that this was helpful. Oh, I think I'm still sharing. And thank you for coming in the middle of the day. If you have any like really pressing questions, feel free to write us at support@roadtocollege.com. I do try and get back to people's like questions within, usually if it's not like a support question, I can get back to it within like 2 or 3 days. The support questions we try and work on faster. And hopefully this is helpful. If you need more help beyond looking at this recording, even if you try Insights, there are some families which just want even more help, whether it's with essays or we do what we call a college list strategy session where we help put the list together. So just look at our website and we'll send you a link with any services, but we're here to help in whatever way or to just continue to guide you and give you good educational information. Okay, everyone, thank you and good luck and let us know how it's going. Bye.